Menscape The Podcast with Carl.J. Ashley.
So, good evening and welcome to the June edition of the Menscape Podcast, sponsored by The Right Coach with the one and only Mr. Brian Noonan. How are
Hello.
you? Good evening.
How are you, brother? I'm great. Great to be on this podcast. I'm very excited.
Joining us from Wicklow, is it?
Blessington and Wicklow. Beautiful
Fantastic.
Blessington.
Yeah.
In the Garden of Ireland. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful place, and very excited to be joining you this evening for this podcast.
Yeah. We like to do the Menscape podcast and put it out and share it with the guys in the group and maybe sometimes even beyond.
Brilliant.
Tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Brian Noonan. I'm 32. That's like blind dates, isn't it? I'm 32. I work in construction of my own property maintenance business. And I have been on one hell of a journey in the past year and a half. But we'll get more into that in a bit. Day to day,
Yeah.
I just love having the track. I love having the laugh. I love seeing people laughing. I love doing a bit of work, getting up, going to work, doing the things that just most people do every day. You know, not big into football and a few other bits and pieces, but big into most other things, you know. Happy out doing them.
How did you end up involved in the construction business?
It's a funny story, that. So I was always very handy with my hands from a very young age. People used to always tell me, you're very gifted, you know, you can take your hand to anything.
My missus wants to book you in, by the way. I'm the opposite. I'm not very DIY at all.
I have the diary open. There is a funny story to that, but we'll come back to that, or maybe it will be shared another time. But I spent years following other people's footsteps in business through the ego, you know, trying to look the biggest and have the most and all of these different types of things. And I never really gave these beautiful gifts of, you know, construction, craft, woodwork, metalwork, whatever, landscaping. Yeah. Never really gave them the time that they deserved, and put my head into everything else. I had a shop, newsagents, deli, was involved in some other family businesses, and really when I sat down and kind of asked myself after the newsagents business wasn't going the way it needed to go, and I had to go, business had to go. So when I sat down with nothing else on my mind after trying so many different things, I thought, what does Brian want to do? What's he really enjoy? And what would he like to work at? And I said, I love woodwork. You know, I love working with my hands. It's made me money all this way from a small child all the way to the here and now. So why don't I look at going into this trade full time, or, you know, a mix of the trades, multi-skilled? And I came up with a lot of different things, you know, personally. You know, geez, you haven't done an apprenticeship. Maybe you'd need to do an apprenticeship. But all of these things, I was in my 20s, you know, I was going, what do I do? Mid-20s, you know, do I go back, do an apprenticeship, earn 250 quid a week? All of these things went through my head. And I thought, well, Jesus, you know what? I'll just do what I can do. I'll use the gifts I have got, the knowledge I do have. I'll use that and see how it goes. So I had a little car and went out, advertised, say, Brian here, I can do handyman, you know, I can do bits and pieces. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
And it grew from day one. It was successful. People were ringing, people were recommending me, and it just grew legs. And my gifts and talents, well, they grew as well, because I actually started discovering.
When I was a kid and I joined the Cub Scouts and they made us do Bob a job, knock on a granny's door, and you're just like a grown-up version of Bob and Job, were you? Just going around and doing jobs for grannies and making a few quid, is it?
I'd always done the work, even when I had the shops, even when I had the other businesses. I'd always done this work. People always knew that this was me. I was good at it. They'd ring me, hey, can you help me? Can you, friends, can you do this? Can you do that? It's like, yeah, no worries, let's do it. Let's have a beer, let's do it on the weekend, whatever the case may be, let's get it done. So I just really turned it into a full-time business. And it just grew, Carl. It just went boom, So the van came along, the tools came along, the excitement, the learning, it came along. I did for years always watch other tradespeople work, as a
Right?
small child.
Yeah.
It's always in their pocket. What are you doing? What's that? I was the tradesman's worst nightmare when he came to my mom's house. What in God's name is wrong with this child? He will not leave me alone. And it was so inquisitive. What's that for now? And some of them were great. Some of them would go, come here and I'll show you. Others were like, oh, yeah, I have a job to do. I have to get on to the next one, which is fine as well. So the knowledge came in that way. Knowledge came in from above. My grandfather, bless him, Lord of mercy on him, he was the head gardener in the Priory Church for over 60 years in Tala, where I'm originally from.
Okay.
So it's in the blood. He was a handyman. You could take his hand to anything. It's in the blood as well. So yeah,
So when you said the business grew, was it through word of mouth, or did you create a Facebook group and a Facebook page and blow up the social media, or do radio advertising, or how did you grow the business? Was it just purely standing over the quality of service of the work and letting word of mouth do the rest?
Yeah, there were so many different things, Carl. I mean, one of them was a Facebook came along and Instagram came along, and I could show people this is what I can do and this is how I do it. So that was one aspect of it, but also just talking to people, having an extra 5 minutes to start the job and finish the job, or during the job, saying, hey, this is what's going on, this, that, if they're interested, that is, and how's this job going for you? Is everything going the way we had agreed, the way we had spoke?
Oh, come here. Everybody knows somebody that needs a job doing.
It's the thing. And a lot of lads aren't interested in a lot of the small or tricky or, difficult jobs. They just want easy cash in and out, which is fine. But it creates an opening for me, who loves them trickety, small, difficult jobs.
So if you have an awkward little job that nobody else wants, there's a niche in the market for someone who is prepared to do those awkward jobs.
Yeah.
But you talk to any kind of plumber and he probably wants the bathroom jobs, refitting the bathroom, few days work, few grand in it. Doesn't want to come out and fix a tap.
Yeah.
Where he's got to get dirty and doesn't know what it is until he starts troubleshooting and can only really charge you $60 or $80, like troubleshooting a laptop even. But like, there is always a need or a requirement for someone who is able to sort of look at a situation or look at a problem and diagnose it and solve it. And oh yeah, that needs to go there, and that needs to, and you need to, and it's a skill. It's a niche skill set to have, to be able to. What is it they say? There's a quote that's often misquoted, and it goes along the lines of "Jack of all trades, master of none, is better than being master of one."
Yeah, true. Sometimes I am the problem finder. Someone wants the problem solver, but we need to find the problem first. So this is another skill of, whether it should be leak detection or just have a good nose for it, But yeah, like that, I've found myself in some very unusual jobs where a lot of people had been in and look, I'm really sorry, there's nothing we can do here to help you. One person actually told a woman, burn your house down, drive a tractor through. I've done everything. I can't do any more. Yeah, and great to say I went in there and within 2 hours of being there, problem found. A day later, problem fixed. Happy customer.
Shifting slightly away from, say, the day job, then I'm going to ask you a few sort of standard questions. Feel free to ad lib as much as you want. Have you ever jumped out of a plane?
Yes, I did.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever ridden a horse?
I have.
Have you ever written a book?
No.
Have you ever driven a Ferrari?
Yes.
Have you ever had children?
No, that I'm
Have
aware
you
of.
have you have you ever eaten an insect?
Yes,
Have you ever been abducted by aliens?
very possibly.
Have you ever cheated death?
Yes.
Have you ever walked on hot coals?
No, not on purpose. We clear that one up.
Have you ever done public speaking?
A little.
Right. Buddy's come to join us there.
How you,
Hi,
bud?
say hi to Brian, buddy.
How you, buddy? Oh,
Ah.
he's gorgeous. He wants in. He wants in.
So, where did you drive a Ferrari?
In Ibiza.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Jumping out of a plane, was that like a parachute jump?
Parachute jump with a very good friend of mine, my best friend, Gary Blake. We done it in Sligo over Mount Belbulbin.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Belbulbin.
cool.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Okay, so what are your favorite books and what would you recommend to people and why? Any books that you've come across that have changed your life that you'd recommend?
So this is me being very honest here. Books are very new to me.
Well,
I have a couple.
Movies are often based on the books.
Yeah, even movies, nothing jumps out at me, Carl, to be honest with you. Yeah, nothing movie-wise jumps out at me.
Have you
I
a
was never
favorite?
never a superhero kid, or never had some kids it was Batman or Superman, or never had that. Never was there with me.
So have you a favorite song or a favorite kind of music that you like to listen to?
I really love all music. I think Eva Cassidy's Imagine would be up there, and then Purple Rain by Prince would be in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Two
used
very
to
different
listen
songs,
to
but
Prince in the 90s.
yeah.
I still reckon he was bumped off for sharing some truth about chemtrails back in a
I
public
think so,
interview.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the people in the music industry are very, very tightly controlled. They have handlers. I don't know if you've seen any of the stuff that's been coming out about what's she called? Britney Spears, is it? Her father basically sold her like a slave into the music industry. And Michael Jackson, of course, who went very public to say you're dealing with some very, very unsavory characters here.
There is a lot of that going on.
So, no favorite movies, no favorite books. This is going to be short and sweet. What was your best trip abroad and why? Any favorite holidays? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of traveling through Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Indonesia. I think Bali rings out for me. The Gili Islands in Bali, Gili Trawangan, is just a paradise. There's no roads, it's just sand around the whole island, everything's built around the edge. Horse and cart, it's that peaceful, tranquil, quiet place. And then also there's some very good reggae bars for when you do want to let loose a little, and have a little pop, So that for me rings out paradise, and that for me is my favorite spot, Gili Tea.
And what were you doing in Bali? You were hardly doing handyman jobs out there for the odd jobs.
I actually done one or two handyman jobs, maybe. The hotel I was staying in just needed a little bit of repair, and you can't help yourself even when you're on holidays, Carl. I'm very fortunate that I have a brother in Perth. So I have Jer who's in Perth. So when I went over to visit Jer a couple of years ago with another brother of mine, he was traveling through India. He'd been there for a month or two, Chris, the eldest brother. And we decided we're going to Perth together. Let's meet in Bali, Let's go there and get together for a few days. So that's what we've done.
So that was the reason.
The reason, one, I've been there a couple of times. I've been in Bali a few times. I have an uncle who's married to a Balinese woman, and they had their kind of wedding blessing over there. He's had a birthday over there, and I've been fortunate enough times to be able to attend different things. And when I was traveling through Asia, back and forward a little bit to Bali, Beautiful.
That sounds amazing. I've never been
What?
to Indonesia. I did Thailand, long haul, and Sri Lanka, but not Indonesia. But I did meet a woman on William Street in Limerick when I had a job with Hybrid IT going back about 10 years ago. And she was in the shop a couple of doors down, and I got chatting to her. And she used to make me the bit of food, and they were Muslims, so they cooked like the meat on the bone. It was so nice. She'd do like an Indonesian curry for me. And I said, so where are you from? And she said, Bali. And I said, what are you doing in Limerick? She's like, well, it's grand here, you know. And I'm like, yeah, but wouldn't you be better off in Bali? And she said, well, look, each to their own, you know. It's like people travel, don't they? You know.
They're like the Irish. They're everywhere. Balinese people are everywhere, and they're beautiful people. Their heart and their soul is just really just amazing to witness. And no matter where they go, they bring a little bit of Bali with them and influence, you know, which is amazing. So I always love to meet Balinese people. Always brings me back to them little breaks away.
Okay, so we met through shamanic. Was it like a shamanic drumming thing? A men's kind of circle. How did you get involved in the shamanic side of things? Like, it's not a natural progression from being a handyman, is it?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah,
shamanism is an interesting thing. So I was, I suppose, exposed to shamanism as a young child. My mom's partner was a shamanic practitioner, a very well-known one, and would have went to Tara as a child, you know, for solstice, and witnessed different events and different gatherings and different ways as I was growing up.
Okay.
And very fortunate to. So that was there, and I've only reconnected with that recently. I forgot all about it, really. To make a long story short, I got involved in plant medicine, and it brought me on a journey, you know, a journey of self-discovery, as it does. And shamanism was something that was an interest before the plant medicine, but really when I had partaken with the plant medicine, it had showed me that, you know, the shamanic ways is where I'm really comfortable with, you know, the easy, basic way of living, connecting back to spirit, to Pachamama, you know, Mother Earth, being one, being true to yourself and true to others around you, led me to shamanism, and led me to Ed Flavin in Dungarvan, who's my shamanic practitioner. I'm doing his shamanic practitioner workshop, or workshops at the moment, one a month for a weekend. And we're more than halfway through it now, and it's amazing. The course is absolutely unbelievable. It's like I've just come home to something that I already knew, you know, but I'm learning the foundations as well, which is very important. You know, we can all practice shamanism. We can all say, oh, I'm a neo-shaman, you know, or I practice shamanism. But it's very important we know the basics, we know the fundamentals, the principles, and we learn with ourselves, you know, we learn to go inside first before we try and practice shamanism or say we practice shamanism with other people. It's very, very important we understand us, the I am, in ourselves. So there was a beautiful joining of plant medicine, a shamanic practitioners workshop, and then, you know, this Us Mighty Men. You know, Us Mighty Men is the work I do here in Wicklow and Blessington, came along, and it came to me really through the shamanic work and through the plant medicine that this is where, you know, my discovery of self and discovery of what is it to be in a tribe, you know, what is a tribe, what is it to be, came to me. And it was, you know, well, this is, you're feeling great, you're really making progress, boy, you know, but here's why. You've had your tribe, you found your tribe, first of all, you know, most importantly, and they're raising you up. So as we fall into the depths of darkness and can't maybe, or find it hard to find a way out, they're there supporting us, you know, through integration, through friendship, whatever it may be. They're raising us up and showing us that, you know, these emotions, these feelings whatever it is that's going on inside us is a journey, but it's also going to pass. It's temporary, and being able to connect with that and have them people there around you is beautiful. It's truly humbling and beautiful, and to be in that state of humility and be able to say, yes, oh, really, this is hard, this is tough. So that was what I witnessed, and that's thankfully, and I'm blessed to have experienced with my tribe.
You're blessed in Blessington.
Blessed in Blessington. Yeah, you know that one, don't you?
You have. Let me interrupt you for a second there. You have a habit of speaking very eloquently and articulately from the heart. It's very nice to hear you. You're kind of flowing in a very natural way there, and I would be very, shall we say, inclined towards the things that come to me naturally. So without knowing it, I was always interested in Buddhism and came across philosophy in school, went off to uni, did philosophy, did some Buddhist philosophy, joined a Buddhist center when I came to Ireland. But there was something like about the formal structure of the religion that just made me kind of, I love the Buddhist scriptures and the Buddhist teachings. I like the intellectual aspects of it as well, but it's only a system within a system. It's a system within a system of religions, and what I like about Buddhism is you can take from it what you will or what you can. It's not prescriptive. They're not saying here you have to believe this, this, and this. What I found when I sort of dig a little into the shamanic stuff was it resonated naturally with me because very simple philosophies like we don't own the land. The land owns us. We're here for 70 if we're lucky, right?
Yeah.
And the land is here before we're born and after we're born. And we're temporary custodians of the land. This idea that we can own the land is both contrary to common sense as well as against spirituality, right?
And we're born with nothing. We leave with nothing. Only our name.
The core of this is we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Yeah. And yet you see some correlation with the Buddhism that there's this grasping or this clinging to these attachments like material possessions, belongings. People identify with what they own or what they have, and it causes suffering. So the Buddhists are not far wrong, but the term shaman apparently originated in Siberia.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I've never been, but it's meant to be a vast, vast, cold, dark place. I've read some of the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and fuck me, you don't want to be in Siberia with no clothes and no home or what have you. It's a very forbidding way of life.
Yeah, and this is it, Carl. This is the truth in it. And I'll throw just a little bit in to interrupt you for a second there when you're on that. I spent years filling my life with shit. Cars, addictions, money, jobs I didn't want to do, businesses I didn't want to run, just to fill myself with something.
I was going to say, you're a bit young to have gone through the dark night of the soul, but that's exactly the path that some of us have to take.
Yeah, and I remember someone saying to me, all these things you're gathering are not going to bring you what you're looking for. I think they said boy at the end of that as well. But they were right, and where I am now, I have a good life. But leaving aside the business and the money, I have a life that I'm in connection with. I have boundaries, agreements, communication. I have a lot that I didn't have before. And what I do have now, I truly cherish. And my life is completely different. So that shamanic lonely journey is, it's can be that lonely journey. But the journey of oneself can be very lonely. Any spiritual journey can be very lonely. as well. So it is a beautiful journey, to take upon it. But I came from that place of the abundance of having to have everything, the biggest cars, the newest cars, the best of clothes, the greed, the absolute greed of really fucking needing so much. I was so empty inside, it's like, fill it up, oh yeah, Brown Thomas, let's have you, big car, let's change it for something better. Who's got that down the road? I'll have that. Addictions, alcohol, smoking.
I call it like the hungry ghost, feeding the hungry ghosts.
Yeah.
And I spent years there. If I was at a wedding, I'd have to be the last man standing at 6 o'clock in the morning. Every other person with any sense had gone to bed. And there's me still drinking myself sober and needing to be the last man standing.
We're lucky we didn't meet at a wedding. We would have had some late nights, so it would have been a good competition, because that was me,
Yeah, but you see, when you look at society and culture, as Gabor Mate so eloquently describes, it's contrary, or it's counter to sort of authenticity and that journey of going within. So it's almost like if you look for happiness outside of yourself through drink, drugs, women, whatever, and cultivating that social version of yourself as to how people perceive you, there's something always going to be missing, because it's not authentic, or it's not coming from the heart, or it's not genuine. And at some point then you're going to turn around, you're going to say, this is not doing it for me, something's not working. And you might have a breakdown like I did, or you might just start crying and not be able to stop like I did. But at some point it seems that there are like signposts on the road, and unfortunately living a life where you're trying to please others and doing what you think people expect of you is going to end in tears.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody can tune into that. Something has to change somewhere. There is always something that comes, whether we listen or not, and whether we're ready to actually step out is another thing.
Yeah, coming back to the shamanic stuff, I always had a fairly natural kind of inclination towards the tribes, the indigenous tribes of Northern America, the Mohicans, the Cree, the Sioux. There's literally thousands, and they all lived in harmony with the land. So whether it was by the river, or in the mountains, or by the lakeside, or on the coast, or in the forest, they all learned to integrate with the environment. So the killing of a buffalo might be the difference between life or death. And that one buffalo might last for 3 months, that you could feed from it, make clothes, make weapons, and so on and so forth. Like it'd be huge, that way of life seems to have been, unfortunately, annihilated, desecrated, disrespected, and abused completely. But I think there's something coming up where it's rising back up, and it's coming back again.
There is a wave. Yeah, there is a wave coming in at the moment. Everything has a cycle in this life. Firmly believe everything has a cycle. People 10,000 years ago could have been a lot more intelligent than what we are, who are sitting here today, our beings. People may say, "Oh, how are they more intelligent?" That's a whole different podcast. You can get into different things there. But we know there was a lot of intelligence. But also they were more intelligent because how they lived was healthier, was cleaner. They didn't partake in things that they knew were going to harm them or kill them. And that's one really big thing for me that I'm kind of learning, we can say, is that we are so programmed as individuals that we are told, like, this is really bad for you. It's legal, like alcohol. It's legal. It's bad for you. Really bad for you. It can destroy your whole family. Can rip your health apart. It's bad, but it's okay. And what do? We destroy ourselves with it.
And
It
make
rips
it
us apart.
legal. And
Yeah.
every single ceremony that you might ever go to as a child, a christening, a funeral, a wedding, births, deaths, birthdays, you name it, it all revolves around drink.
Yeah. And people say, oh, it's the Irish way, the Irish thing. So it's actually, what are we repressing as Irish people? The shame, the guilt, the anger, the unspoken. You know, the drink is actually being pushed on us to keep us quiet, you know, and that's something people need to wake up to.
This is very interesting.
Mm.
So what I'm gonna do now is just sort of divert slightly from the shamanic stuff and the shamanism sort of stuff into the truth of stuff. Did you sort of have any feelings over the last sort of 2 or 3 years that what was going on was kind of, there was something patently obvious that wasn't being said, or there was something not really adding up in the way that things were being portrayed? So if you hadn't stepped into a bit of authenticity, if you hadn't stepped into a bit of looking within, and you hadn't gone through a bit of the dark night of the soul, then maybe you'd have been sort of led off the edge of a cliff like a lemming or a sheep or something.
Yeah,
what's your feeling on what's been going on?
I couldn't put one word or a sentence towards what's happened. Just say in Ireland, let's just focus on Ireland at the moment.
Yeah.
It is something that is just bonkers. It's been so dark. It has been filled with so much fear and bollocksology that I think it will take a long time to unravel, but also to deal with. As an individual, only speaking for myself, fears and the anger towards, we all know governments are what they're really about, right? We'll save that chat. But, you know, to witness the extremes they went to and how fucking shit they were covering it up and nearly laughing about it, getting caught going to events, you know, and they shouldn't have been happening, was the two fingers to me and you and every other normal person. When I say normal, I mean not in a suit and a doll, you know. And they really, you know, I hate to say it, but they did win. You know, they won in their experiment. What will it take to control people?
I think experiment's a good word, because the whole thing had all the hallmarks of a behavioral psychologist's wet dream. If you studied Edward Bernays and these guys in the 60s, they said, they called it the science of pulling habits out of rats.
Yeah.
And they could basically, what's the right word I'm looking for, where they break it down? They could put humans. Yeah, it's like people were put into certain situations where they could predict how they would behave.
Yeah.
And seeing people willingly and voluntarily put on masks, restrict their ability to breathe properly and breathe fresh air, and people's willingness to comply with nonsensical mandates. I don't think anyone was prepared for how gullible and preposterously stupid a lot of people are or have become. Now, I don't mean that in a nasty way. It's like when you see the programming and the conditioning, when you see it for what it is, and you see how there's like input, output, response, reaction, when you see how certain channels are deliberately used to create something which then has the condition for a response, and you're aware of that, you can't really go back to being asleep once you kind of become aware. But to see the amount of people willingly complicit in their own sleepwalking, I think was the scariest thing for me.
Yeah, I think there's two things that are really important here. One is the experiment that was conducted, which was the COVID experiment. And the other real bit that concerns me, what people took part in, was what they were willing to sacrifice. You know, we are sovereign beings. You know, we have to remember that people allowed their family members to be taken into hospital, to be locked away, and to die on their own. You know, people for €350 a week were deciding to sit at home, men, just talking about men, to sit at home and partake in this experiment. And sure, it's great, not thinking of what their children will have to endure, you know, or their brothers or sisters, or mothers or fathers petrified sitting in their houses. And they're going, ah, mommy, I'm on the phone. Sure, that's the best we can do. It's great, you know, it's okay. You know, we've really kind of disconnected from what we are and who we are, you know, to witness what people done, never mind the vaccine, you know, the jabbity jab.
Oh,
Just
you can't say the V word on YouTube, boy. It's you know what I mean. They'll they'll slap us down for that. But you see, yeah, and that I think is part of a very deliberate strategy. Not only the attack on masculinity, the attack on sovereignty, the attack on free speech, the attack on what's wholesome and what's good and what's right. And humanity in a nutshell. I'll never forget being stuck in Manchester city centre when I was about 21, 22, 23, maybe a bit older. My car broke down and I was fucked. I was stranded. I was in the middle of nowhere, just outside the city. And this fella came up and he's like, what seems to be the problem? And I said, I don't know, maybe I've run out of petrol or something, but something's not right here. And he scratched his head. He said, right, well, come on then. And I said, well, where are we going? He goes, well, we'll take you to a petrol station and we'll fill you up. I'm like, I've got no money. He's like, don't worry about that. So this fella who doesn't know me from Adam literally drove me a couple of miles to another part of the city to a petrol station, paid a $5 or whatever to fill up a petrol tank for me, took me back to my car and filled me up and made sure that I could start. Now, forget the obvious stupidity of how could I run out of petrol? I don't know, was that the issue? It was the kindness of a complete stranger who didn't owe me nothing. And at the end of it all, I said, what's your address? And he goes, don't worry about that. You're not sending me anything. I don't want anything back. Just pay it forward. Do a kind turn for somebody else. And that sense of working classness, that sense of community, that sense of we're all in this together. We're going to help one another out. And I'm not asking for anything in return.
And that is that word you just passed over and you said it, community. Community. How important is community? What is community and how important is it? And let's try take that away and see how things, you know, work for people. And that's part of the experiment, to isolate people.
Yeah.
Lock them away. And just have RTE or whatever news station they're on constant, full of lies, you know, kind of like I was in the killing fields when I was traveling, you know, in Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge used to play music. And I remember when I came home from that experience, you know, thinking to myself, that was mad, you know. But when I came back to Ireland and RTE News came on, I went, oh, this tune sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
You know,
how on earth is it possible that so many people could be deceived, hoodwinked, brainwashed, lied to, deceived? And it goes back to what was Hitler's propaganda minister called? Is it Goebbels or something? Is that if you repeat a lie over and over again, people, even that know it's a lie, will believe it.
Toilet roll, bread, milk, fear, 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 fear. Let's witness now what happens when we say these things. You know, analytics. This is the world we're living in. It's, everything is analytics at the moment. People want to know the minute, microscopic detail of how things react. This was the biggest experiment that mankind has witnessed on a global level. Until people really understand that, and this isn't a, you know, I don't like people who, you know, partook or felt a certain way or still feel a certain way. Absolutely no ill-gotten gains about your feelings and emotions, and you know, everyone is entitled to have their opinion, but this is my opinion. You know, until we wake up, the road is going that way for people. There's like a split at the moment, Carl.
There
people
is.
who are
There
waking.
seems to be two worlds, parallel worlds. We're in the age of Aquarius, so it's almost like the veil is being lifted. It's not that there's all of a sudden there's bad people doing bad things. They've always been there. It's just that we're seeing it now.
Yeah.
What it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The child trafficking, the accounts of the deep underground military bases and children being smuggled from place to place, like, nobody in the right mind wants to consume the details of that kind of information. You're almost grimacing to read it. But if you're pursuing the truth and you want to know what's going on and you're inclined to speaking the truth, sharing the truth, uncovering the truth, discovering the truth, and your energetic vibration is in alignment with truth, you have to make these difficult decisions. Am I going to read this? Am I going to consume this information? Because a lot of it is sickening as to what's actually going on. And the people that are doing it, they have names and addresses. How are they getting away with it?
This is the thing, and this is something that's very important to tie back into as well. As Irish people, what we have suffered over the years, centuries, you know, has been long established programming, but also we've had it from the church, we've had it through government, we've had all the different things, and we keep quiet.
The two enemies of mankind, as I put it, the Holy Roman Catholic Empire and the British Crown, have rightly fucked every Irish man, woman, and child over.
Yeah. And, you know, then they play the little puppet strings of the North, you know. That's the least of anyone's worries, you know.
What they did to the indigenous people in North America and places in Canada, they literally ripped children out of their homes and put them into centers where they were tortured and abused. The unspeakable horrors of colonialism and what's been going on. Every man, woman, and child in Ireland energetically has suffered in much the same way. And if you do any of the family constellations or any of the work in those modalities where you're dealing with that, there is a lot of pain and suffering that still has yet to come up, and a lot of anger that's long suppressed and repressed because you couldn't show your anger, or if you did, you were a dead man.
And this is something I've connected with through the shamanic work.
Right.
And my partner is connecting back to the land.
Yeah.
And also healing with the land, you know, allowing the land to heal and to keen through us as human beings, as spirits, sovereign beings, allowing the land to speak and feel what it has to feel. You know, the bloodshed, the shame, the horrible, horrible atrocities that took place on this land in Ireland that are still being covered up to this day is just so dark, you know, and it's horrendous. And there's people living in this country still who are not of any great age who have witnessed this and witnessed these atrocities, and families that still suffer, and individuals who are still on their own and in darkness, who are told you are shameful, you know, for that situation. The mothers and babies' homes, all the countless babies, the thousands that have died, you know.
Are you familiar with the Ho'oponopono?
Ho'opono, yeah, yeah.
I'm
I'm sorry
sorry,
I
please
love
forgive
you.
me.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love you. Yeah.
And this is part of the practice, like keening the land,
Thank you.
like, yeah, keening ourselves as well, and connecting back to nature, and with all that has gone on in 2 or 3 years ago, with COVID and with all of them things, there is a lot of beautiful stuff that came out of that experiment. People woke up, they really grew a pair. A lot of people were like, wait, hold on, I never spoke up about anything, but you know what? I'm not sleeping at night. What you're doing is not okay. I witnessed a lot of very strong men, women, and children standing on streets, getting abused by their own brothers and sisters. We're
Yes.
standing up going, hey, hold on, guys. Maybe you just need to look at this again. That's all they were saying. They weren't shoving it down anyone's throats. They had compassion with people. They understood. We're all in this together as a collective community. But
It was vilified. I refused to wear a mask. I refused to get jabbed. I refused to comply with the 5 kilometer thing. And I just carried on about my business as usual. Because I'm a bit of a recluse and I've got no friends, I didn't really notice much difference to begin with.
Yeah.
You meant to laugh at that. That was supposed to be a joke, but maybe it was just believable. Sorry. But it's like, this whole idea that, you're somehow committing a crime by just breathing fresh air. I was in a shop locally with my daughter at the time, and this guy was the size of a fucking barn. He was about 6 foot wide, let alone 6 foot tall. Looked like he should have been playing rugby for Munster. He was a farmer or something. And he turned around and pointed at me. My mother died because of someone like you.
Well,
and I'm like, me? It's like, what? And it's like, this guy was upset. He just buried his mother last week and he was looking for someone to blame, and she'd probably been taken. They probably popped something into her and she probably died suddenly very quickly afterwards. But it was being blamed on people that weren't complying with the mandates and wearing the masks that were about as useful as wearing fishnet tights to stop a mosquito.
Fishnet tights could have been more useful. Could have had some great looks going on.
Oh man, just absolute nuts. Like I, in the end, I walked away. I didn't want to be especially in front of my daughter. I didn't want to be in a very difficult situation. Like my first inclination was to give this guy a mouthful. You don't know what you're talking about. But I could see how angry and upset he was, and he needed someone to blame. And the situation didn't lend itself to allowing for it to become even more of a conflict. Like he could have knocked me through the wall of that shop, not a bother on him. Fiercely powerful looking man, and very upset. Now, those are the people that we need mobilizing as part of the truth community. Not the ones that are blindly following the orders and listening to the mainstream media guff that's coming out and controlling the hearts and minds of people that haven't really been encouraged to challenge the narrative.
Yeah, well, it works for them. A lot of people they'll say, oh, well, I'm great. We have a couple of political parties in this beautiful island of ours in Ireland here, but we have the May Féinear party, and I'm okay. I believe everything that I'm told. Everything is normal. All my kids are happy, healthy. They don't have any issues. They're not doing any drugs. Everything is grand. So aren't we great? Let's just carry on as normal and keep going that way. Because reality, if they were to step outside that, it's just actually too much for them to take on.
And this is the phenomenon of, is it the Hegelian dialectic or the cognitive? I think it's the cognitive dissonance, where if people are prepared to accept that they've been lied to, it's going to open up such a big can of worms that they're going to have to rethink their life. So we won't do that today, lads. We'll skip that and we'll just carry on believing what, comfortable lies rather than uncomfortable truths. But there was definitely positive effects from what happened, because you could see who was in your tribe.
You could see
Yes.
all of a sudden, all right, this is someone I can vibe with. This is someone I can trust. They see it. And the people that maybe you thought were your friends, you could see weren't. And the people that you weren't sure if they were, you could see that they were. So there was a huge kind of, an
It's amazing.
adhesion and a cohesion there.
It has horrendous as it is to witness.
Yeah.
For me personally, it was also one of the most beautiful things to witness where we are in humankind,
It's still
where
happening.
we are in this country,
Yeah.
where we are as people and how much we actually mean to each other. Best friends, no longer friends, brothers not talking, parents abandoning children because they won't get, people missing out on weddings, funerals, whatever it was, things that create traumas,
And I think that's it. When you dig into this as deeply as I have over the years, you begin to realize that there is some force or some entity that deliberately needs to create fear, shame, pain, anger, and this lower vibrational energy they call loosh to feed off of. And it's like, unless you consciously raise your vibration, which you can't do all of the time, we're all going to have days where we dip or we feel a bit down or we're not 100%. But unless you consciously raise your vibration, you're literally food. There's entities feeding off this lower vibrational energy.
They need this. They need people to be in these states. They do feed off that energy. That is, something that, it's funny because if you were to put it down to like a person, geez, that makes them tick, gets them off. But there's also a huge part of who we are, the power game, the struggle. We see it on TV, I'm Taoiseach, 6 months, I'm Taoiseach, sure. Two gobshites who don't know a thing about anything. One's supposed to be a doctor.
Divide and conquer. There's blues, there's reds, there's greens, there's yellows, and the illusion of democracy is this whole charade of politics.
Exactly. And as an individual, just for my own basis, we can lay down and be food and be devoured, or we can stand up and go, well, you know what? This isn't a trial run here. This life is happening. The here and now is taking place. What's done is done. What's going to be, who knows? But the here and now is happening. And I have one shot at this. Now, if someone's going to ask me where I'm going outside some 2-kilometer rule, or you can't do that. Well, sorry, as a sovereign being, I'm not breaking any laws. Truly, no laws are being broken here. Rules, suggestions, whatever. But I do not partake in this experiment. Now I have to go because my life is continuing on.
Yeah.
And if anybody gets offended with you, if anyone gets annoyed with you, go, listen here, I didn't invite you to be still standing here telling me all this information of how annoyed you are with me. Simply be sovereign, turn on your heels and walk away, and we never have to see each other again. And if we do, you don't have to speak to me. If we all agreed on everything in this country, it wouldn't be any crack at all.
I used to know a guy down in West Cork, God bless his soul, Tom Sheehan. And Tom gave me a little book, which I'm going to pronounce terribly. It's called the Bunreacht na hÉireann. It was the Irish Constitution, both in Irish and in English. Yeah. And I sat there and I read it. And the core of the Constitution is all about the family, the people, the community. And there's kind of homage there to Brehon law, which was all about your animals, your livestock, and there's a lot to be said for the common law movement. I'd love to get a speaker on, actually, someone who's well boned up on the common law, and for the benefit of us in the Menscape group, but also for anyone beyond that, to investigate more into the common law stuff. When you see that there's like this maritime law that's been grafted on to the culture, and for the cars you need a driver's license and a vehicle and all this different language that goes against the grain of just being a man and traveling. It's like absurd.
give me a horse and I'll be gone, you know, and a donkey. We all need a donkey. But, you know, it's like sovereignty as well. You know, a lot of people in Ireland are reaching into the realms of sovereignty now as well, and they're really looking at it. But, you know, like that, it's just another thing they're just trying to punch down on as well, you know, and they just don't want people free. They do not want you thinking from your heart. They want you up in the head. So the thinking brain, Carl, I think we spoke about before, the knowing heart. You know, when something is wrong, you think about something and it doesn't do you much good. When you go with your gut, you go with your heart, you never really go too far wrong, you know. And the people that were feeling from their heart and thinking from their heart and their gut when COVID came along, they were the ones with the feet in the street. They were the ones just trying to protect their tribes, their brothers and sisters, even the ones that spat at them. They still stood there.
So take that, right? Imagine that your gut or your intuition's like a muscle, right? How are you going to develop if you don't turn off the TV and you don't stop reading the newspapers and you don't sit and meditate and you don't partake in activities that deliberately stimulate your pineal gland? If you don't have this awareness, then how are you going to cultivate any sense of whether it be psychic development, whether it be intuition, whether it be gut brain? Like you have to at some point have to say, look, television, load of bollocks. Live vision. They're even telling you what it is, right?
Yeah.
The radio, the papers. If you can't realize that you need to stop it and let it go and drop it and leave it behind and just sit in stillness and then sit with what comes up, it's going to be very difficult for you to attune with your gut brain and your intuition.
This is the current experiment at the moment is how far can we fucking push people? Let them work harder, faster, you know, more hours, more traveling, more traffic congestion, less time at home, less time to have hobbies, less time to go to the gym, less time to do this, this, and this. Oh, and you know, by the way,
pull the women out of their homes and then get the women into work and then put the kids into care, put the parents into care, get more people paying taxes.
Yeah. They do not want you being, you know, alone in the sense of having time for yourself, you know, going for a walk in the park, going for a walk and going for a sea swim, connecting that something might fire in the brain or fire in the heart or fire in the gut. Oh, Jesus, hold on, I don't like this. They don't want that. They're doing everything in their power to ensure that you're a slave 24/7, even phones, Instagram, Facebook, what's going on? I'm guilty of it myself. I have to physically and God, no, I was like, Jesus, you know, like, come on, you know, someone like I had a customer.
He wrote an amazing poem there, and he called it "Addiction to Distraction."
Yeah. And this is the thing we do it ourselves, but also it's been done to us. You know, it's a learned behavior, and it's really one thing that helped me was just actually what made me turn on was turning off. You know, so that really, you know, gave me a lot of like answers to what's going on with me, within me, about me, around me, was actually just having that time to go, what is going on? And the only way we can do that is by actually physically having the time and the space, you know, so
ironically, would you not say that by putting the lockdown on us and imposing on us this stay home, that we all had time to sit and meditate?
And we did, and this is the beautiful thing that I think is overridden as well, Carl, is that so many people awoke during the lockdown. They got into nature, reconnected. So many seeds have been planted with people, like young people. The spiritual realms is full of young people. Shamanism is full of young people. People have reconnected. You know, there is the modern version of it, and they have reconnected. It is taking time to obviously allow it grow and develop, because constantly we are being hit with programming, constantly on the phone, on the TV. You know, everything is about just trying to trap us, you know, and trying to really hone in on taking as much time away from you as possible. It's designed that way.
It's all about stealing your soul, is it?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll quit the small talk. We go into. I've got another question before I do the 1 minute quick fire round with you.
Okay.
And it's to ask you: have you a glitch in the matrix story? Did anything happen to you that completely distorted your view of reality to the point whereby you had to question everything?
Yeah, so I had a few personal things, that went on in my life. My health a couple of years ago took quite bad, so that was one side of it as well. I think for me though, to keep it more in lines, the glitch in the matrix one day was really realizing I'm working fucking 6 days a week here. I could be working 70 hours a week and making great money, but I've no money. How am I going to buy a house? How am I going to progress on? How am I going to do different bits and pieces and settle down and stuff? And there was a bit of reality seen, about what's going on. So it's interesting. I could go down a few avenues here with this, but there's been a few incidences where there's been a glitch in the matrix. There's been spiritually, physically, some have been fine, some have been painful.
Mine was having a dream within a dream when I was about 15. I got up and I did my paper round and got home, got dressed for school, ran down the road, got on the bus, sat down on the chair of the bus and woke up again. I was literally cheated. I was robbed. I was like, I've just done this fucking paper round already and now I've got to go and do it again. Like,
yeah,
there's no point telling anyone. Nobody believed me that I'd just done all this. It was like reality just got distorted to the point where it was like, hang on a minute, what's the difference between a dream and a reality? When we died, is that just not like waking up from a dream? Or like the holodeck in Star Trek? Computer, take me back to 19th century Victorian England or whatever. And all of a sudden, that's the environment. And then at the end, you're like, computer, stop the program. Boom. Like, who knows what is going on?
Well, that's, plant medicine as well as, there's a lot of stuff outside the realms goes on, and, you come in and out of it quite a lot and you experience it a huge amount.
Did you see gnomes like Terence McKenna, Brian?
No.
You didn't see gnomes? No?
I see no gnomes. I was really, someone else had said about gnomes, and I was like, I do like a garden gnome, But no, like, I mean, the understanding the vortex, understanding the matrix, understanding what we are, or what we're made of, and how the world works, I experienced through plant medicines, and it's one hell of a journey, and it's something that I wouldn't have even been the little tip of a pin that was near a bubble which may burst, into a whole different picture. So it is something that is different, I suppose, for everyone. But I think if we become more conscious, we will notice things that would have happened, or may still happen, or maybe are happening but may not be happening at the same time. So
I think the nature of our experiences of the universe is paradoxical in nature. Something can be both, like when in particle physics, where it's a wave and a particle at the same time, dependent on whether it can be seen or not. I think there's at the core of things, there's an element of this paradoxical nature where something both exists and doesn't exist at the same time, or it can be the same and both and neither at the same time. So words can't actually capture that. It's nonsensical. Anyway, the quick fire 1 minute round, because I've taken up enough of your time as it is. And thank you so much for being our guest on the June Menscape podcast. Brilliant. England or Germany?
England.
Aldi or Lidl?
Lidl.
Sunset or sunrise?
Sunset.
Blonde or brunette?
Blonde.
Manchester or Liverpool?
Manchester.
Brown or pink?
Brown.
Kerry or Dublin?
Kerry.
Spots or stripes?
Stripes.
Gardening or gym?
Gardening.
Boccherini or Echo and the Bunnymen?
Boccherini.
Sun or moon?
Sun.
Silver or gold?
Gold.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Meat or cheese?
Meat.
Onions or carrots?
Carrots.
Salt or pepper?
Pepper.
Hurling or rugby?
Hurling.
Pizza or Chinese?
Chinese.
And finally, forest or beach?
Forest.
Thanks so much again, Brian.
Thank you.
Of Us Mighty Men. And I hope you will
so
enjoy
much.
the rest of your evening, sir. And thanks for joining us. And God bless.
Thanks, Carl.
Menscape, the podcast with Carl.J. Ashley.